Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be making some sweet dinner rolls. The first step to making these delicious rolls is to warm up 1 cup of milk and also melt 2 tablespoons of butter. I will also add half a cup of warm water. And finally you need to add something sweet, so I will be using honey and adding 2 tablespoons. So honey is actually really important to add to the yeast. It'll help the yeast to activate quicker because the yeast eats sugar. So it'll just become foamy and bubbly a lot quicker. Now I'm looking for a measuring spoon to add 1 tablespoon of yeast to this mixture. I'm using active dry yeast here. If you wanted to use instant yeast, you could actually skip this step because it's already been activated, so you don't actually have to add it to warm water and some sugar element like honey. So give it a quick stir, and then it'll take about 10 minutes for this to just sit there. It'll slowly start to get frothy, and that's what indicates that the yeast is alive. Once you see it starting to froth up in the bowl, you know, okay, my yeast is ready and I can move on to the next step. There we go, the yeast is ready. So now it's time to add the flour. I'll add about 3.5 to 4 cups of flour. So it depends really on the texture of the dough. So I don't want a dough that's going to be too sticky or else it's going to be really hard to work with. I also don't want a dough that's too dry, then it won't rise very well or quick enough. I added a tablespoon of coarse salt to that as well. And the next step is just to mix it all together. So you need to make sure that all the elements are fully hydrated, mixed together. And I will be kneading this just a little bit, not too much, so that I can make sure that the dough is nice and soft so it'll rise quickly. There are some tricks to prevent the dough from sticking to your hands when you want to knead it. I actually didn't follow my own advice here, but you could either wet your hands because the dough won't stick to wet hands quite as easily, or you could just add more flour to your hands, which is eventually what I do to get it off of my hands. So I'm going to transfer all of this to a work surface, and I'm trying to keep the baby asleep here. She may have been waking up a little bit. So I will be kneading this dough just a little bit here and there, not too much, but I want to make sure that it's nice and soft. One of the reasons why I really like this recipe is because it can be made really quick. It can be ready in almost less than an hour, and sometimes when I don't really know what I'm making for dinner and I need some quick bread, this is my go-to recipe. Now, by kneading it, I'm actually speeding up the process so that it will rise a lot quicker. And this is why it'll be ready so quick. Now I poke the dough. I know it's nice and soft. It's a texture you're really looking for. So I knew to add a bit more flour because it was a bit too sticky. And at this point it felt nice and soft and it sprang back when I poked it. And that's how I knew that it was ready to be transferred to the bowl. I'll place some saran wrap over the bowl and I'll just let it rise. Usually I leave it on top of the stove, but really you can leave it anywhere. Depending on the temperature in your house, it'll take a different amount of time to rise. The warmer it is, the quicker it'll rise. There's a couple tricks you could use also to help it rise quicker in case you're kind of rushed. Sometimes I'll put it kind of near my oven if my oven's on to make it rise quicker, or in the winter I'll put it near the fireplace to make it rise quicker. It's just the heat will help it really take off and spring up. So the next step is to divide this dough into 8 equal parts. I'm putting some parchment paper down on a baking tray because this is where I'll be putting the dinner rolls so that they can bake on it. I'll use my dough scraper just to separate the dough, but really you can use anything, a knife, you could use your hands to pull it apart, however you wish. Some people like to weigh these out to make sure that they are all even and the same size. I don't really take that step. I often also make them in different sizes because some of my kids like smaller rolls while others will eat a bigger roll. Here, I'm just going to speed up the process a little bit. You saw that I sort of pinched all of the dough into a small ball. I tried to pull the dough so it's soft on one side and so the underneath has all of the parts that I pulled down and pinched together. I'll do that with each one of these, and then I use my hand and I kind of cup it around the dough and I roll it so that it becomes all set and stuck together. I then flatten it a bit just so that it's not too round in the end, but they end up springing up and becoming quite round after they bake, that is. I am going to put on a towel now on top of it, just to cover it so it doesn't dry out. And then I'll leave it to rise for, usually I leave it for about 10-15 minutes. I usually start preheating the oven, and by the time the oven's ready and I get back to, putting some egg wash on top, that's when I'll put it in the oven. So I just beat an egg in a bowl, and I am going to paint the egg wash on top of each one of the dinner rolls. You want to do this kind of gently so that you don't put any indentations in the rolls. But I mean, honestly, bread is super forgiving, and if you do make some mistakes or you put a dent in it, or I don't know, you drop a roll or you have a kid come and hit one of them, it'll be fine. It'll still turn out great and it will taste delicious. So I'm quickly painting the rolls here. And once they are done, I believe my oven's preheated, and I will turn around and put this into the oven. There it goes. I normally bake this for around 15 minutes, give or take. I check on it. I want to make sure that the tops are nice golden brown and that they fluffed up. So here I'm checking, and I think they look good. I'll take them out, and I hope you agree that my dinner rolls look nice and fluffy and tasty. The best way to test out the actual turnout of these rolls is to cut into them and see how soft they are inside. So I cut one open and they look nice and perfect. You could also tell how well they fluffed up by how heavy they are. So if they're really dense, then they'll be much heavier, whereas if they're soft and fluffy, they'll be a lot lighter. I've made many mistakes sometimes with this recipe. I've doubled the milk. I've not put enough flour, but even when I make those mistakes, normally the final product is still a pretty good product and it's still pretty edible. Although to have the best product, you want to follow the recipe, of course. So here I'm just showing you what I did with these rolls today. I actually used them for lunch for my family, and I just made up some sandwiches, put some egg and some mayonnaise, and I put some hot sauce on mine and my husband's, and I think I had some cheese on those eggs, and I added some bacon to it as well. My kids kind of like different things, so I need to make sure to have, their own individual components. One of them likes cheese, one of them doesn't. But this is just some ideas of what you could do with the dinner rolls. Other times I've actually used them for hamburgers as well. I've used them for like chicken salad sandwiches. I've used them for so many different things. My kids actually like to just eat them plain. My son loves to just have a dinner roll for a snack. So I'm going to serve my family their food and maybe take a little bite of bacon for myself. And everyone's enjoying their lunch. Thanks for watching.